As we mentioned, multiple sources reporting tonight the Trump Organization could face criminal charges as soon as next week. The Manhattan DA's office has been building this case mostly against the company's CFO, Alan Weisselberg, hoping to flip him and gain his cooperation. NBC News putting it this way, quote, court documents show that Cy Vance, that's the Manhattan DA, is probing possibly extensive and protracted criminal conduct at the Trump Organization, which could include falsifying business records, insurance fraud, and tax fraud. Still with us, the aforementioned Chuck Rosenberg. So Chuck Weisselberg is key to this because the Trump Organization is not a vast organization. There's no board of directors. It is basically a family-run company with a lot of long-timers. Weisselberg goes back to when Trump's father ran the outfit. Michael Cohen contends Weisselberg flipping isn't essential because he says that the documents that he is aware of that the DA's office has are damning enough. Please take on that question for us.
Yeah, maybe yes, Brian, and maybe not. As a prosecutor, you always like to have documents, of course. That's compelling evidence, but you need someone to breathe life into the documents. To use another cliche, you need someone to put meat on the bone. And that's why having individuals on the stand who can explain the documents, maybe who wrote the documents, who received the documents, who interpreted the documents, are so important in a criminal case. And as you described, Alan Weisselberg goes back a number of years with the Trump Organization, many years. And to another point you made, also very important, it's a small corporation. It's a small, privately held company. And so if anyone's going to know where the money is and where it went and how it went there and why it went there, it's going to be the CFO, and that's Alan Weisselberg. And so I don't think Michael Cohen is entirely correct here. At least in my experience, I want documents and I want witnesses. Maybe that makes me greedy as a prosecutor, but to my way of thinking, having both of those things really gives the case more power. It makes it more compelling for the jury. And I don't think anyone could make it much more compelling in a fraud case than a CFO who's willing to testify against its principles.
Yeah, I've never known a prosecutor who wants to try just a paper case absent human involvement. Chuck, based on the known knowns, and I guess I'm going to ask you to react to what we know because it's been leaked, do you think there's enough to flip Weisselberg? Do you think the proper pressure has been brought to bear?
Yeah, hard to say in the abstract, Brian. People flip when it's in their best interest to do so. And for many people, it's in their best interest to do so when they're looking at a lengthy jail sentence. Charging a corporation isn't going to be enough in and of itself to get Weisselberg to flip. Having said that, lots of people don't flip. They just simply tell the truth. There's nothing to flip. You subpoena them, you interrogate them, you question them in front of the grand jury, and they tell the truth. Now, I don't know Mr. Weisselberg. I don't mean to cast any aspersions on the man. I don't know if he would tell the truth or if he would lie. But charging the corporation is probably not enough if he did something wrong to get him to own up to what he did. And so there are other options for prosecutors. Perhaps they have a case against Mr. Weisselberg directly. If not, they can always put him in the grand jury, immunize him, and compel his testimony. There are a number of ways to get to the truth. Flipping a recalcitrant witness is one of them, but there are other ways to get to the same place.
Let me play something that someone you and I both know, Daniel Goldman, said tonight about this case.
It's interesting and not surprising that they would approach the Trump Organization to tell them that they're considering to charge them, because that would be almost a death blow to the Trump Organization. Every single bank would call their loans if the Trump Organization is indicted. There's no way that the Trump Organization has enough capital to pay off all their loans.
Chuck, less than a minute remaining, but I sure, of course, as a civilian, had not thought of that. Do you concur?
Yeah, I wish I was half as smart as Dan Goldman. charging a corporation can be cataclysmic for the corporation. Just think about what happened to Arthur Andersen, the accounting giant, back in 2001 when it was charged as part of the Enron scandal. So, Dan is right. There's risk here if you charge the corporation. Perhaps banks call loans. Perhaps they don't extend further credit. I don't know what each individual bank will do, but there's absolutely a risk. And so when prosecutors think about charging corporations, they also think about the collateral consequences to the corporation, understanding that our actions in charging that company could put them out of business. Dan's a very smart guy, and we would be wise to listen to what he has to say.